Hey guys, welcome to Stay Strange with Jen. I'm Jen. If you're into cryptids, UFOs, paranormal mysteries, or just really weird stories that make you go, what? Then you're definitely in the right place. So today we're talking about one of the most famous UFO cases of all time. The Betty and Barney Hill incident. Now, I'll be honest, I had heard of this case before, but I had never really sat down and researched it. And after digging into it, there are definitely some details that made me stop and go, okay, that's actually kind of weird. Now, does that mean I think they were abducted by aliens? Not necessarily. But I also don't think this story is as easy to explain away as some people make it sound. So today we're going to walk through exactly what happened. We'll look at the evidence, we'll talk about what skeptics think, and then at the end, I'll tell you what I think. Let's get into it. Who were Betty and Barney? So first, who were these people? Because I think that's actually really important. Whenever I hear a crazy story like this, the first thing I want to know is who's telling the story? Were they trying to just get famous? Did they have a history of making wild claims? Well, Betty was a social worker and Barney worked for the U.S. Postal Service. They were a married couple living in New Hampshire. From everything I could find, they seemed like a pretty normal people. They weren't running around telling everyone they'd been seeing flying saucers. In fact, before this happened, they lived pretty ordinary lives. And honestly, I think that's one of the reasons this case has stuck around for so long. Because these weren't the kind of people you'd automatically expect to make something like this up. So, it's September of 1961. Betty and Barney have been on vacation in Canada on their honeymoon. And they're driving home to New Hampshire. It's getting late. They're tired, and honestly, they're just trying to get home. If you've ever been on one of those long road trips where you've been driving forever, you know exactly the kind of night I'm talking about. Dark roads, hardly any traffic, just miles and miles of trees. Nothing exciting until Betty notices something in the sky. At first, she doesn't think much of it. She assumes it's probably just a star, or maybe a planet. Something totally normal, but it keeps moving. And not the way stars are supposed to move. So she keeps watching it, and eventually she points it out to Barney. And Barney is basically like, nah, it's probably just an airplane. Honestly, that's probably what I'd think too. I mean, if somebody pointed up at the sky and said, hey, look at that, my brain is immediately trying to come up with the most normal explanation possible. But the longer they drive, the stranger this object starts acting. And this is where the story really begins. So they keep driving down this pitch black highway, and this light is just following them. It's getting bigger and closer and changing directions in a way that an airplane definitely shouldn't be doing. Eventually, it gets so close that Barney actually stops the car right in the middle of the empty road. He gets out with a pair of binoculars and looks up at this thing. And this is the moment where his whole, it's just an airplane theory, goes completely out the window. He looks through the lenses and he is staring at a massive pancake-shaped craft floating just above the trees. And the creepiest part, he claims he could see in the windows and that there were actual figures staring back at him. Barney freaks out. He runs back to his car, throws it into gear, and slams on the gas pedal. He's yelling to Betty that they need to get out of there right now because he genuinely thinks they're about to be captured. As they're speeding away down the road, trying to process what they just saw, this bizarre buzzing sound starts echoing through the car. They said it felt like a tuning fork vibrating right against the metal of the trunk. And suddenly, this intense, heavy drowsiness washes over both of them. Like their brains just go completely foggy. And the next thing they consciously remember hearing is the exact same buzzing sound they heard, but a second time. This time, the craft is gone and they're miles down the road. They look out the window and realize the sky is already starting to gray. The sun is coming up the next morning. And when they finally pull into their driveway at home, they look at the clock and realize that they had actually taken 2 hours longer to drive than they should have. There is a literal 2-hour chunk of their lives that has just been completely erased. Now, if it was just a memory gap, you could probably say, okay, they were just exhausted, they were spaced out. But over the next couple of days, they started finding all these weird physical clues that something physical actually happened. The stopwatches, both of their mechanical wristwatches had completely died at the exact same moment, and they never worked again. Barney's brand new leather dress shoes were scraped across the top like his feet had been drugged across the ground. The hem of Betty's party dress was badly torn, and it had this strange powdery pink substance on it. Get this, when she hung it up in her closet, the spots where the powder had touched turned completely white, like it had been bleached by a ghost. Betty noticed these perfectly polished, weird concentric circles on the trunk of their car. And when she took a basic compass and held it over the trunk of the car, the needle started spinning out of control. So at this point, they're understandably losing their minds a little bit. They have all this physical damage, broken watches, zero memory of 2 hours. For the next couple of years, life gets pretty rough for them. Betty is having these intense recurring nightmares about being stopped by a roadblock, and Barney develops severe anxiety, insomnia, and even painful stomach ulcers from stress. Eventually, they decide they need professional help, and in 1963, they're referred to a Boston psychiatrist named Dr. Benjamin Simon. Now, Dr. Simon wasn't a UFO investigator. He was a mainstream man of science. And during World War II, he was a military neuropsychiatrist who used regression hypnosis to help traumatized soldiers remember blocks of times they had suppressed due to shell shock. So in 1964, Dr. Simon hypnotizes Betty and Barney in separate sessions, and they make sure they aren't accidentally feeding each other ideas. He strictly forbids them from talking to each other about it between sessions. And when they are under deep trance, the floodgates open. They both independently recount the exact same core story. Their engine dying on the dark road, being surrounded by a group of short, gray-skinned men with massive dark eyes, and being led up a ramp into a sterile, brightly lit room. But what's wild is how differently their brains process the trauma. Betty looked at them very analytically, almost like a social worker would. She remembered the leader speaking to her telepathically and treating her with a strange kind of clinical courtesy. She even recalled them sticking a long metallic needle directly into her abdomen as a pregnancy test. Barney, on the other hand, was just paralyzed by pure primal fear. He kept his eyes tightly closed through almost the whole thing just to cope. He described their voices as this heavy, non-verbal command that completely controlled his mind while they examined his bone structure and his skin. If you've ever listened to the original audio tapes of Barney's hypnosis, it's chilling. Hearing a grown, no-nonsense man crying out in blood-curdling terror while reliving this, whatever it was, it's haunting. The biggest curveball of the whole case came out of one of Betty's sessions. She claimed that the leader showed her a 3-dimensional projection of a star map, with a solid and dashed lines showing trade and exploration routes. Dr. Simon gave her a suggestion to draw it from memory once she woke up, so she did. And at the time in 1964, astronomers looked at her drawing and basically said, looks like nothing, looks like some random dot, means nothing to us. But a few years later, an amateur astronomer named Marjorie Fish spent years building physical 3D models of local star systems and using strings and beads. After looking at her models from thousands of different angles, she found a near-perfect match. According to her work, the central hub of Betty's map pointed directly to Zeta Reticuli, a binary star system about 39 light years away. This is where people get really split. Believers say there is no way a small town social worker would randomly guess the exact alignment of stars that astronomers hadn't even fully cataloged or mapped yet in the early 60s. But skeptics, including the famous astronomer Carl Sagan, argued it was just a classic case of pareidolia. That's just a fancy word for our brain's habit of finding familiar shapes in random noise, like seeing a face in the cloud. They figured if you draw a few random dots and search through billions of stars in our galaxy, you're bound to find a match eventually if you look long enough. When the story eventually leaked to the public, scientists and psychologists scrambled to explain it. The most common theory is that they were just completely exhausted. They'd been driving for days on a grueling honeymoon trip, and they likely fell victim to highway hypnosis or severe sleep deprivation. Skeptics think the glowing craft was actually just a total misidentification of the planet Jupiter, or a military flare bouncing off the thick mountain fog. Even Dr. Simon, who grew pretty fond of the hills, didn't think it was aliens. He completely ruled out the idea that they were lying, but he hypothesized that Betty's vivid nightmares were so intense she unconsciously shared them with Barney over months of shared stress. Basically, her dreams accidentally became his memories, and the hypnosis just locked that shared delusion into place. The reason I find this case so hard to just completely dismiss is those stubborn physical details. Shared psychological stress or highway hypnosis doesn't explain why a car's trunk suddenly gets locally magnetic in spots, or why the mechanical watches died at exactly the same time, or why a strange pink powder permanently bleached Betty's dress. Whether you think they actually met visitors from Zeta Reticuli or went through a massive, rare psychological phenomenon, one thing you can't deny is that their midnight drive completely changed pop culture forever. Before 1961, when people pictured aliens, they thought of little green men from vintage comic books or giant B-movie poster monsters. The Hill case completely rewrote that script. It gave us the exact blueprint for what we now consider a classic alien encounter. The lonely country road, the lost time, the medical exams, and the classic look of what we now call gray aliens. Literally everything from the X-Files to Close Encounters of the Third Kind leads right back to this single night in New Hampshire. And hey, if you love a good mystery as much as I do, the team over at Urban Cryptids actually just dropped an exclusive line called the Lost Time Collection. It's a super cool tribute to Betty and Barney Hill incident in New Hampshire. And I will leave a link in the description below if you want to check it out and wear a piece of the unexplained history. But before you go, drop a comment below and tell me, what do you think? Was it just a shared delusion between Betty and Barney? brought on by stress? Or did something truly unexplained happen out there on Route 3? Thanks for hanging out with me on Stay Strange. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, and as always, never stop looking up. Bye guys.